Yeah, still good morning, everyone, and welcome to the BRAIN Project conference. The BRAIN Project addresses a very important issue in the Latvian context: the role of the migrants, the role of the ones who are abroad, and their plans. Do they intend to come back? And if they come back, what will they do? Will they go into entrepreneurship? Will they do something else? What makes this project quite special, I would say, it's been also, in addition to looking at the current state, it's focused a lot on the future. What are the future plans of particularly the young generation? So these are issues we will discuss today with my colleagues, with high school youth, I would say, and experts. So the project's been running a bit longer than we expected, 4 years actually, due to COVID, and that has given us also an opportunity to have quite an ambitious research agenda throughout the years, and you will learn more about it in a few seconds. The research project like this wouldn't have been possible, of course, without the researchers, so I'm very happy to have several of my colleagues sitting around me right now. And also, as you know, research requires funding, so we are very grateful to the research grant from the Latvian Council of Science that made this project possible. And I am convinced, actually, that it will pay off in terms of insights and insights that are highly policy relevant. So having said this, welcome to all of you online, and we are a small crowd also on site, but most of you are online. And the plan is that we have a couple of discussions, then a break, and those of you online can actually watch project videos so you get some insight during that half-hour break, and then we have another discussion. So welcome, and now I think we have the first discussion here. So we will change places. Thanks. So we have a very qualified panel, and I think the panel should not be introduced by me, but it should be introduced by the panelists and project researchers themselves. So maybe we start with you, Marija, and then work our way towards me.
Yeah, thank you, Anders, and nice to see people, not actually see, but nice to know that there are people online watching us. And I'm glad to be here today, this sunny day. And my name is Marija, and I'm a researcher at the Baltic International Center for Economic Policy Studies and a team member of the BRAIN project.
Yeah, right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Zane Varpina. I'm in the current project. I'm a researcher in BICEPS and Baltic International Center for Economic Policy Studies. In the meantime, I'm also the associate professor in SSC Riga. And my background is actually economics and also demography, which is, why when we touch on many of the things here in the project. So I hope you find the discussion here interesting today.
Hello, good morning. My name is Kata Fredheim, and I'm very excited to discuss our findings today and take it further with policymakers and practitioners. I'm an anthropologist by training. I focus on migration and education. I'm a fellow, a research fellow at BICEPS, and I'm also an assistant professor at SSC Riga.
Okay, and I'm Paalzow. I'm the rector of SSC Riga. I'm also the acting director of BICEPS, and I'm economist and been involved to some extent in the project, working in particular on the entrepreneurship part. So let us start here with maybe the first question being, like I mentioned in the introduction, the project has been kind of looking at where we are, but also forward looking. So maybe all three panelists could give a few reflections on the current and the future. Anyone? Yeah, we start with you. Yeah.
So I think it's important that it has...
Microphone.
I think it's important that it has the two parts, looking at what is now and what has been in the past, and looking at the future as well. Because what the future holds is important for policymakers. So we asked high school students about, just before graduation, what are their plans and hopes and their dreams? Where do they want to go? Where do they want to study? And how are they feeling? This especially became important during COVID, when there were a lot of ups and downs and online, on-site, hybrid education, to find out about where they want to go, because their plans are actually an important indicator of future migration behavior. And we also talked to managers and entrepreneurs and return migrants about what they think of return migrants, what are the skills, what return migrants do in the labor market, and why they want to return. But I think I should let my colleagues talk about that a little.
Well, I think you summarized the project pretty well already, so I don't even know about the general approach, what else there is to add. Except for, well, COVID was not, of course, the original plan. That disrupted the plans somewhat, but also gave us, of course, a lot of interesting insights, since we had started the work with the school graduates and school children to see how they feel, so we could also, follow and observe what they were feeling and doing, and how COVID affected their behavior and plans. Masha, would you like to add anything?
I'm thinking what actually I can add, because numbers, yeah, there are, I think that we, in total, over these 4 years, we surveyed around 10,000 people, Latvian adults, and also representatives from the other 2 Baltic states. They were also students, 3 cohorts of students. We've made 36 in-depth interviews. Yeah, so a lot. With return migrants entrepreneurs. You can add about the others.
Yes, so thanks to my colleagues for an introduction, and now I will be more like school teacher rather than moderator, because I will start asking a bit questions to my colleagues here. And as we mentioned, it's very much about the future, and who represents the future better than high school students. And Zane, I know you were quite a lot involved working with the high school students, so maybe start with a few reflections from your point of view.
Yeah, right. So, well, I think this the school children, the school graduates, I think, was actually the very starting point of the whole project, because we, looking back at the history, we sort of realized that we do have very little information about what's happening to school graduates once they exit the door of the school. So yes, we know there are a certain number of students who start education in Latvian higher education institutions. We here in SSC Riga see a number of them, but do they start the studies right after school? Do they take a gap year? Do they go abroad and do so? So there was somewhat little information about that. The flow of the cohorts. So we got insights into that, well, in the form of what they expect to do. Of course, not so much what they actually do, but the expectations and their aspirations is also by theory a very good predictor of what they plan to do. So we surveyed, I think, about 3 cohorts, which is in total about 6,000 of school graduates in the moment when they graduate from the school, or right before. So that's yeah, what else should we add here?
How many of them plan to go abroad?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. So all the results, right? So and the two, I think, the most important questions was, first of all, what they plan to do in the next year after they graduate, and the second was what are their mobility and migration aspirations in the coming years, more than 1 year ahead. So, well, quite unsurprisingly, it's more than 80% who plan to continue studies in the year after they graduate. But what's interesting is that it was 17% who say they want to go for studies abroad. And also, quite interestingly, the number has been pretty robust across the years. So from that, even the COVID years haven't, made big changes to their, at least the expectations. How that realized is a bit a different thing, but there is a very big drive for them to actually go and study abroad. I think almost 20%. That's a big number, and they would go to mostly Europe. They expect to go to UK, Netherlands, Denmark, the main destinations. And then talking about further about their aspirations for life, further if they expect to go and live abroad for some period of their life, is that we find that it is 2/3, more than 60%, who say they want to live abroad for a certain period in their life. And then there is about 1/3 who are sort of undecided, and very, very small proportion, just about 15%, who say, no, definitely not, or very unlikely that we would go. So this is, I think, something to look more into why and how this is.
Yeah, please, Kata.
Can I just talk about the interviews as well? Because we conducted about 50 interviews to look deeper into why and what are the thoughts of these students. So every year we conducted a small batch of interviews about an hour long. And it was really interesting to talk to them, because they told us not just that they want to go abroad or they want to move. Almost all of the students wanted to move, even that's just to the next big town or Riga. So mobility is very much on their mind. And when they start thinking about moving, I found that really interesting. Already in ninth and 10th grade, they start thinking about, maybe I relocate, where will I go to study or to work? And by the 11th grade, they pretty much make a decision. Of course, there are the last-minute decisions, I'm not going, or I go later, but by 11th grade, they know what they want to do. And we also looked into why they want to move, and from the qualitative sample, it's about experiencing something new, about experiencing a new culture, a new language, a new way of life and thinking. Having said that, not all students want to move right after graduation. Many think, I do my bachelor's here or my first work experience here, and then after that, I will be better placed to go for a master's or get a job abroad. And the other factors why they want to move, and I'll let you pick this up in a second, is specialized subjects. So some of the subjects, architecture, design, they feel like there's not enough opportunities to specialize in Latvia, so they are looking abroad. Adventure is the top one reason. And also I think the networks play a role. So by now, there's so many Latvians abroad that they hear all these stories about family, parents, and peers working abroad and studying abroad. So they often go, my mate is studying in Copenhagen. I heard they have super parties, most often super parties, not so much super lectures, I heard in the interviews, and I would really like to try that. So I think the diaspora effect is something that's really significant. Zane, what else did come out of the quantitative interviews?
About the education and why they want to go. Well, I think one also thing too that we observed is what you touched upon already, is that, okay, yeah, we would expect to see that, yeah, if they go abroad for education, that would be something that they cannot learn here. And because we also ask them where they want to go and then what kind of education they, like something specific. And then, well, yes, there is, things like bioengineering, something special, or design, this or that. That is there. But then again, we also notice that much of what they want to learn abroad is entrepreneurship, IT, many different things that we also have here in Latvia, and also at a good quality, which I think again speaks about the fact that it's just a fact of just going abroad, moving, if not cutting the ties, but sort of this step of growing up, making into the next, step, the big step in one's life. And we also see that, and that's a bit, it didn't come out so much of the, the surveys, but what we see later on is that some of them, come back after 1 year of studies in the Netherlands, saying that, well, the education was there was not maybe so great after all. They would come and we see students applying also here and coming back for different things. So they don't always go for a better quality education. That's the bottom line. Again, not always. Of course, some these high grades also go to Harvard and where have you, but it's not always for the quality of education that they go for. What else? I think also what we observe and what the data shows that the students who perform better or with better grades, they're more prone to go for studies abroad as well. All I can.
One very short question. Did you see any difference in terms of gender? Were males or females among the high school students more or less likely to go abroad?
Not in terms of gender. No, that didn't turn out as a significant determinant, but language or ethnicity would be a determinant. What we did see is that Russian-speaking school graduates are more prone to go for studies abroad, and they also say they want to live abroad for more of their life.
Do they go east or west, the Russian ethnicity group? Do they go to Russia, or do they plan to go to Russia? Now everything is, of course, very different with the war in Ukraine. But did you see any pattern, or they are also looking kind of more to the West and Europe?
Oh yeah, well, no, today it looks very different from what it did last year. Well, the thing is, Russian universities were mentioned as destinations, along with UK and Denmark, Sweden, Netherlands. But well, we cannot say sort of for sure because the numbers are, it's still pretty relatively low, so we cannot draw any, statistical evidence from that. But I mean, from just looking at that, it doesn't look like now the Russians also want to go west. Germany for them is a rather popular destination.
And to add to that, from the interviews, I think Russian-speaking graduates, so whose first language is Russian, what they say, they talk of Western education. Some of them, a few of them mentioned, and maybe I would like to live in Russia to work there later, to start an enterprise, to see what it's like. But in the interviews, Russian universities were scarcely mentioned. It's really about the UK and Denmark. Interestingly, Germany, people were really scared of Germany, students, because they felt like that German is not good enough. And a lot of German education, especially in the bachelor's level, is still in German, not so much in the master's level. So they often planned up to 12th grade. And then they stepped back and said, actually, we're going to Britain because our German, we don't feel confident enough to do the German tests and study in German.
Okay, if we then leave high school students or graduates for a while, and Zane, you mentioned that among their plans was to go abroad to be entrepreneurs. And what do we know about kind of Latvians abroad, Latvians coming back in terms of entrepreneurship and their entrepreneurial aspirations as such? Because there is in the literature, academic literature, some sort of common understanding that people coming back might be entrepreneurial, but some of them might be entrepreneurial because they do not have anything else to do, and some might come back because they have a really good business idea. And I'm looking in the direction Zane and Marija, so I think you both have answers to this question, and maybe Kata as well. We see. Please.
I will take this one. Yes, what we found that experience gained abroad, networks and skills really matters. And if we compare the entrepreneurial activity rate within those with foreign experience and compared to those without foreign experience, what we see that those with foreign experience are much more likely to start an enterprise here in Latvia. What is also very important to mention that they are less frequently starting enterprise because of the necessity. So the main reasons for them to start to get involved in entrepreneurship is to make a difference and to earn a lot of money. So this was what they've stated. So the opportunity-driven entrepreneurship for them. What is also very important that not only the traditional entrepreneurship is higher for return migrants, but also the intrapreneurship, employee entrepreneurship, meaning the entrepreneurship within the enterprise. When they start new products, new services being employed in some companies. What else? What I want to mention, if we compare for people with foreign experience and those without, we also see that enterprises that are owned by the return migrants, they are usually more innovative, export-oriented, and growth-oriented. So I think that return migrants are actually agents of the business growth and innovativeness here in Latvia. Maybe Zane, you want to add something?
Yeah, well, you really nailed it to the most important results. Yeah, I think as a bit of reflection or explanation, I think it's very important to note that the entrepreneurship that is started here by return migrants, and here by return migrants we mean those who have been lived abroad for at least 3 consecutive months, but it is also holds true for those who have lived abroad for more than 18 months and more than 3 years, right? This was what we looked at. That the enterprises here are really, they are not necessity-driven. Necessity-driven means that, well, there is no other way. They couldn't support themselves otherwise. Well, they had to start, an enterprise and do something else. They couldn't enter the labor market with their skills and competencies, which I think really speaks towards the fact that, well, the people who come here are not. There's no this bitter return in academic language. So that's not the ones who failed abroad and are returning. They're the ones who come back with a purpose to usually with a plan when they come back to do something. I think that's a very important emphasis to make.
Can I pick up on that and talk about why people return actually? Because I think that was one of the most interesting parts of the research for me. So we didn't only interview people in Latvia, but also in Estonia and Lithuania. So altogether, we have almost 80 interviews with return migrants, and we asked them also, why did you return, and what were the motivators? And economic reasons or failing is not present. What they talk about is really changes. A lot of them are thinking about returning for a long time. And actually, when you talk to the students before they migrate and they plan, they always say, oh, but we want to return. That's, of course, only for Latvia, that sample, but we want to return because Latvia is a beautiful country. And that's the pre-migration. When we look at post-return, people say, we return for family reasons. We want our children to go to Latvian schools. The Latvian language, being close to parents and networks and grandparents is very important. Jobs, they often get a job offer at home. And they also return for the lifestyle, because it might be that the salaries are lower here, but you can do, well, at least before the recession, you could do a lot more on the salary here. And the thing they often mention is the rat race, living in London, working 24/7, and not wanting to continue that lifestyle anymore. This is very much linked to getting older, so pension age, turning points in their career, or family planning. So when they start to have children and their children reach school age. So those are the turning points people mention. There's also a lot of relationship issues. So I'm getting a divorce. I fell in love with a beautiful Latvian woman or Estonian woman. It's mainly the women. Getting married. So those things are the things people talk about when they say, this is why I'm returning.
So we have people who would like to come back. Do we have any idea how they are perceived? Are they welcome when they come back? Are they accommodated? Is it easy for them to get into the labor market? And I guess all of you might have answers to that from your respective approaches, so to say. So who would like to start? Maybe we do Kata and work our way down.
So as I said before, we conducted interviews with school students. We also conducted interviews with return migrants, and we also conducted interviews and surveyed entrepreneurs and managers to find out both sides of the story. So what return migrants say is that actually I went abroad to study. There was this Estonian bartender who said, I went to the best bartending school in the world, which is, I think, in Ibiza. I get that. And then I came back because I thought it would really add to my career. And then there we are talking about bachelor's, master's, work experience. And then when they come back, they say, actually, it mattered a lot less than I thought it would. I imagined that people would just jump at the opportunity to hire me, but because I didn't have the network or the qualifications from back from Lithuania or Estonia or Latvia, it was a little bit difficult to get a job. And for some people, it's really difficult to get a job. They talk about having to apply many times, having to restart. The longer you've been abroad, the more difficult it gets, it seems, from the sample. So that's from the perspective of return migrants. There was actually one interesting anecdote. A lot of people knew people who returned 10 years ago. And what they said is 10 years ago it was easy because there were fewer people with foreign qualifications and experience. But now so many Estonians, Lithuanians, Latvians have it that actually it doesn't make us special anymore. So we looked at the other side of the story, which is what do managers and entrepreneurs think? And most of them value skills such as openness, resilience, and being able to adapt quickly, language skills. There's a couple of people who say, I will never hire a return migrant because I don't know what their qualifications are. They are from abroad, and I don't have time to check. There's people who say, well, especially in the medical field, it's difficult because that is such a specialized experience from abroad that they actually have to retrain. But overall, they are positive. And there's one group of managers who really like to hire return migrants, those who are return migrants themselves. They think return migrants are special and different. Zane, you can pick it up.
Well, again, you said it all, I guess. Especially the last point, yes, that it very much depends on their previous experience. Like if there's a personal experience and they know what it means to be abroad and return, and they they're more positive towards that. But it's quite interesting that it's the employers are not sort of unequivocally positive. That differs, say, and I think as we're looking a little sort of bit back, as you say, when there were not so many who have been abroad yet, that they would say, well, they're arrogant and they think that experience is so great and so valued that they don't sort of feel the local context. But I think we're seeing less and less of those, just because, and that's also one of the findings that we have from the survey data, which is actually nationally representative, that we can say that according to the data we have, that it's 15% of population who have foreign experience, who have lived abroad more than 3 consecutive months. So that's quite a number, I would say. Yep.
Can I add to that? One of the things that I found really interesting is when we started this study, we read that within 6 months, many return migrants start thinking leaving again. And at least I thought, really? And it's true. So especially during COVID, we noticed that, but even before, we're talking of circular migration. Returning is not the destination, it's just part of the journey. So we are moving from A to B to A to C, rather than, coming home as a permanent thing. And that was very interesting during COVID, because we conducted interviews with those who returned during COVID. And some of them, when the restrictions hit in March, their jobs were lost abroad and they just returned home. But by April, they were like, how can I go abroad again? And this way, the border closures actually restricted them in returning to their own lives abroad. So that was a very interesting thing I noticed in the data.
I can just add that, for example, if we take into account the fact that you've mentioned that not all of the employers actually want to hire the return migrants, maybe actually the path of being entrepreneurs themselves is the one that should be focused on. And we know that based on other further previous research that actually a lot of return migrants, they have this willingness to go to become an entrepreneur. And that what I think is very important to understand how what have to be done actually to not to push, but to let them make these first steps to create the business, to start entrepreneurship. Yes, this is what I wanted to add. Mm-hmm.
And to add to that, and it's interesting, so do I come back and become an entrepreneur is something a lot of people talked about. But what really made a difference is what did they do abroad? So those who had skilled jobs or jobs in their field, they found it much easier to find a job and integrate. But those who did, either low-skilled labor or jobs that were not quite in their field, or even, spend time being moms or fathers. We had examples of that, especially from the Lithuanian sample. They found it much more difficult to find jobs in what they thought is their profession. And so that's an interesting dimension to add to, do I become an entrepreneur, I think.
Yeah, a couple of more questions, and they are based not on research, but on anecdotal evidence, essentially talking with people. One relating to the high school students, what I heard from students at SSE Riga, but also students from other places in Latvia when talking about whether to study abroad or not. Many of them tell that, okay, it would be nice to go abroad, but I realize that I will kind of work and live after graduation in Latvia. So if I do not spend time in Latvia during my studies, I will not have the network, and I've seen from others that it's very difficult to get into the labor market if you do not have the network. So that's first question, and might add second one related to the remigrants. Again, anecdotal evidence that yes, I want to come back, there are job offers, but I cannot stand the organizational culture in Latvia. So if you could kind of, do you have any insights on this, and anyone willing to start?
Can I jump on the culture question as an anthropologist? So we did that. We asked people about the culture of work and returning, and the culture of life, actually. And there were two parts. One is before they return, and one after. So what they thought before they returned is that, oh, well, this is particularly for Lithuania and Latvia. Estonia is a very different case. Lithuania and Latvia haven't moved on. I remember administration doing my taxes. It was very difficult 10 years ago. So it's probably like that, and I don't really want to deal with that. And when they come back, they actually find it a lot easier. Except if you're a Lithuanian trying to register your driving license, I hear it's really difficult. So that is mentioned in every single interview almost, that they had to spend so much time on it, and it was very difficult. Estonia is a very different case, because the return migrants say, well, but Estonia has been doing so well. They really developed. We are now an entrepreneurial capital, and it's a cool place to live in. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of new companies. It's a vibrant place to live in. So Estonia marketed itself successfully, not just to the world, but also to its migrants. And they are actually coming back in greater numbers with a positive net migration. And this is something they speak about, that they didn't just read about the Estonian news, but in the international news. So they are very much inspired by that. As for the work culture, people expected that it will be very old-fashioned, and it is so in some sectors, but not in every sector. But absolutely, networks matter.
Networks matter. Yeah, I think I would have probably two answers to that. The networks, yes, we did see that at least earlier days, that students would like to have the higher education here because to have the networks, the local networks. I think it changes somewhat, has changed over the last years with the more and more use of social networks. I mean, people, even if they go abroad, they never sort of go for good and not even looking back. They keep very much of life is still happening in all kinds of social networks. So they, even if they come back for a vacation or a Christmas, they would get physically together, but also very much keeping the knowledge and understanding of what's happening. And second thing is I like probably to point out that an organization which is called the Pasaules Pieredze Latvijā. And that's not the only one. That is actually a network of people who have been abroad, lived abroad, and have returned here. So they are establishing their own network even here to bring people in, to help with integration, to even spread word about opportunities and networks and job opportunities. So I think with the use of technologies, that has become so much easier. Yeah, that's this about networks, from my perspective.
I don't know whether it's particularly on networks, but it's on kind of personal experience. A person who is studying quite a well-known university abroad, he came here for summer looking for a job. And in one places, he was told that he's too qualified, that's why they can't take him. And on the other place, they said, we do not want to have you because we know that you will leave. So this is also kind of very strange, because in a way he was not given an opportunity even to experience working here, and also from the company's point of view, why not to show this person that his education is valuable here, he is needed here, and to employ him for the summer. So yeah, very, very, very interesting things that what is going on here in Latvia.
No, that's a very... Yeah, sorry, Masha, you had an additional comment.
This is not for all the companies, but at least this is what... And the person was really, really disappointed, because he was while he was offered some jobs abroad during the summer, but he really wanted to come here and use his experience here, and he was not given an opportunity.
Very, very, very interesting observations, particularly in the light of what's going on in Latvia. We have labor market, we have employers kind of asking where are the people, there is shortage of labor. That's first comment. The other one we have from policymakers that we should build a knowledge-based economy, and then we hear comments like that. How many are there, Zane? Are there 200,000 to 300,000 Latvians abroad?
Well,
microphone.
Yeah, different estimates, but it's up to 300,000 who are abroad. The total, well, not all of them have left in the latest years, but the total diaspora is estimated up close to 300,000.
Okay, so we have 300,000 people abroad that are usually kind of, could be seen as an untapped resource here. And at the same time, we have a shortage of labor. We have policymakers that wants to do a lot of things. And to me, it's a paradox. Why don't we see more activities aiming at return migrants? In particular, since research has this discussion already shown that return migrants, they are more entrepreneurial, they have ambitions, they have knowledge and so forth. So they have essentially everything you would like to have, and we do not see very much of policy here. So again, to ask maybe all three of you to reflect a bit on this, and also some advice. I've seen on the screen we have policymakers, we have OECD and others joining. Maybe give them some input in terms of policy formulation. What should we do to draw on this, that to me looks like a very obvious resource that can bring a lot to Latvia? So please.
So I think what's interesting, that's a very good question. Thank you, Anders. I think we could do another session on just this, which we will do in the roundtable. What's interesting is that the governments have actually been very proactive in some ways. So they all have return migration coordinators in all the regions, in Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, and some initiatives ended, some starting new again. What I'm hearing from the return migrants, though, is that it's great because they sort of help them to find a job, but there are just so many questions. And it's the life part that really almost intimidates return migrants. How do I put my children to school? How do I find a place of living? If you've not been in a country for 10 years and your networks are getting weaker and weaker, it feels like just another migration experience rather than returning home, even though people have this idea that I'm returning home. And then interestingly, when they come back, they go, oh, wow, the place changed. It's almost like a new country. So it's not that the governments have not created initiatives. There's also new laws and opportunities. I think maybe the Estonian example is a good one. Good marketing works. I think Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia demonstrated that they are countries that have plans, and they are progressing, and they are entrepreneurial, and there's opportunities for new business creation. And so to let return migrants know about the opportunities here and the success stories would be just so important. So the soft side of marketing, I think, could be used more.
Yeah, I think we probably should even zoom out now a little bit just to see what is happening, in migration studies and migration just more generally. Is that what's happening is that, well, the migration from this point A to point B and then to point C maybe, or back to point A, is no longer the case. It's more like now the migration researchers talk about liquid migration, or this fluid migration, meaning that people are so much more mobile to sort of move around and go from one place remaining ties and still working in the other place, and then living, in Spain and working for Latvia, and like different kinds of setups like that. So, and it really goes under this liquid migration. So even in different EU and European Commission documents, we can observe that there's been this sort of transition from using the word migration to mobility. So people talk more and more about mobility as rather than sort of strict migration. What it means is there are a lot of factors that matter for why people come and live and go and live where they want to. And it's not so much, some specific, thing. There's a lot in the culture, there's a lot in the society, it's a lot in how open the country is, it's a lot in how the corruption, and all the factors are really becoming very important. And since migration is so mobility is so easy, you can just basically switch one day and decide and go. And with all the remote work nowadays possible, you don't even have to settle in one particular place, and you can do the seasonal migration if you're interested. So I think the policies, if those that we have don't take that into account to this sufficiently, that it's there are a lot more factors. It's not so much. At one point, there was this appealing to this the national duty to almost come back and contribute to the country, and this nationality. That doesn't work. That doesn't work for, at least for young generation, for the more global generation.
What I want to add, I think that what can actually help are some organizations that consist of returned migrants who are already here for some time, being like mentors or ambassadors for those who are just coming back. And I think that this might actually help. And they can share their experiences of coming back to those who are just newcomers, maybe some knives and tips, and and I think that this might actually help.
We know that when you enter a research project like this one, and we entered it 4 years ago, it's like walking into unknown territory, and that leads to maybe the final question here. What surprised you the most during the research project in terms of the findings? So a very easy question to ask. I'm not sure it's that easy to answer. So Zane seemed to be the first brave person here.
I took the microphone first. Yeah, and not such an easy question to answer. I think what surprised me most is probably the fact how many of the young generation are sort of this sort of globally looking. How many of them want to go and experience the global world, the cultures, and go and live abroad for a certain period of time. Well, we didn't ask them specifically if they will live abroad for 1 year and then come back and what are the next plans. Obviously, at the age of 18 or 19, you cannot tell this properly. But the sentiments, the aspirations is that they will want to go and they will want to do that, which I think has very, very big implications for how we should look at the young generation. So we cannot and should not, by all means, stop them from doing that. It's more like, okay, how and when and if they will want to come, not even them come back, but also others from other countries sort of come in. So we have to accept that we are living in a more globalized world. That I think was mostly surprising from my perspective.
been not surprised, but very interested in the fact that actually there are quite a lot of people with foreign experience here in Latvia. So this is first. And the second one, I've been quite surprised also about the fact that employers here do not want to, that there are some employers who do not want to use the experience and skills of return migrants. This actually was two things that surprised me mostly.
That was very surprising for me as well. What are the skills that employers seem to appreciate? Because I imagined when we started this project, perhaps naively, that it will be a lot about the technical skills as well. But it wasn't at all. Technical skills, they say, oh, you can get that in Latvia or Estonia or in Lithuania. It's the global outlook and the language and the attitudes that came, like the softer things that were very important for employers. And I very naively perhaps didn't expect that. The second thing that I found very interesting is how tough it is for how return migrants experience the return as very tough. So in all the interviews, they go through these great readjustment periods, and some make it through, some are still in it, and some just return abroad. But they find it really difficult to return, to adjust to society, to get jobs, despite their expectations. And as a migrant myself, I mean, not that I've been thinking about returning, but it's not something I would have ever thought about. So I imagine that, and the data shows that they have not been thinking about how difficult it will be. And I think that's an eye-opener for me, just how vulnerable people are upon return.
A follow-up question to Kata then on your last statement that people are vulnerable when returning. Is this something we see in Latvia specifically, or is it something more general?
We definitely see it in Latvia, also in Lithuania, in Estonia as well. So I think it's more general. Estonia had a couple of cases where there were people in very niche jobs that were headhunted, and their return was just much easier. These were single people without families. But no, it's in all the three Baltic countries. It was tough, and they showed extreme resilience, I think, going through this.
Thanks. We are having a program, and we are coming towards the end of our discussion here. And as moderator, I think I have the obligation to provide some sort of summary of a very interesting discussion, and we will get deeper into a few of the topics with the upcoming roundtable discussions. So a few things. I find it very interesting, this concept that in academia is called liquid migration. To me, it sounds more like a new lifestyle. You are some sort of migrant. You do a bit here and you work there, and then you move somewhere else where the sun shines, and that goes on for a while. And it seems also like that is something our high school students have in mind, that at least for some years ahead to do that. So that's first observation. Then, yeah, entrepreneurship is of course extremely important, because we know that entrepreneurship contributes to the growth of the economy. In this context, it's very comforting to hear that return migrants are not only more likely to engage in entrepreneurship, but they also are more ambitious, both in terms of what they do, but also in terms of plans for expansion. So that's really good sign. What is somewhat more of a troublesome sign is this, I haven't found a good word for it, it's not really matching, but this kind of return migrants, how they kind of should meet and with the potential employers, because it's extremely sad to hear that, yeah, I come back, I have the skills, but my skills are not appreciated, and then I go back most likely to Germany, UK, wherever, and I kind of stay there and contribute to the development of whatever country. Final comment, a bit related to that one, mentioned several times the importance of soft factors that, like Masha mentioned here, kind of mentorship networks, people who've been through this remigration process, give them the support, give them kind of share your experiences, because as was mentioned in interviews, it's like coming back to, it's not like coming back, it's coming to a new country, in particular if you've been away for a few years. So having said this, I think we are perfectly on time according to the clock. We have a 5-minute break here for our hybrid roundtable discussion. So those of you online, I guess you have time to go and refill your coffee, and see you in 5 minutes. Thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you to the audience. 15 minutes. Sorry for that. 2 coffees and a bun or a quick lunch. So enjoy. Thank you.
Right, so welcome back to the conference today, where we discuss our project that we have been working here in BICEPS and SSC Riga on a project called BRAIN, financed by Latvian Council of Science, a project of 4 years that we have worked on. And in this panel here, we have we'll talk about one part of the project, which is about remigration and brain gain in Baltics. And so what we will do, we have invited a number of experts and guests to speak about, validate our findings and also speak about how what that means for the economy. So if I may introduce the panelists, the roundtable participants here. I think we probably do not need to talk too much about those who were already, right? So we have Marija Krumina from BICEPS that we met in the first session already. Then we have Zane Culkstena. Would you like to introduce yourself in a couple of words?
Yes, so HR consultancy ERDA, also two other ventures, but also one of the co-authors of the movement we did together with Tele2, which is Latvia Works, which was targeted at bringing back people. And thirdly, a prime example of remigration myself, so have lived abroad for a total of 3.5 years and came back, so 3 in 1.
We appreciate having you here and looking forward to hear what you have to say. And we have Kata Fredheim, who is a researcher here, and we have Ričards Križanvskis.
Right. Hi, everybody. My name is Ričards. I'm founder of skills development company UpMatched, as well as also a curator for youth changemakers organizations, Global Shapers Riga. Been talking and thinking about this topic of skills and labor market for the past 7 years. So very interested also in the results of the studies and the discussion that we're going to have today.
Yes, thank you, Ričards, and welcome. And on my other side, I have Andzelika Berga, who represents Bank of Latvia.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I am representing Latvija's Banka, now from the Human Resource Department, and mainly focusing on the leadership and organization culture development.
Thank you. Welcome, Andzelika. Paalzow, we have met already, and then we have 2 participants there on in a hybrid mode, and I welcome a representative from OECD, Lisa Andersson. Hello.
Hello, everyone. It's very nice to be here. My name is, as you said, Lisa Andersson. I work as a labor market economist and policy analyst at the OECD International Migration Division. So and previously I was also in academia doing research on different topics on migration, including return migration. So I have recently worked on a report on the Western Balkans and labor migration, including then aspects of return migration. And in the past, I worked in different contexts and country contexts, notably more on the, maybe let's say, South countries in Africa and Latin America on return migration. So I'm very much looking forward to this discussion today.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Very, very interesting. Looking forward to hear. And as one more participant, we have Dalia Petkeviciene from Lithuania. Hello, Dalia. Can you? You're muted. We don't hear you.
Hello, everyone.
Yes.
I'm very pleased to be back at SSC Riga. So my name is Dalia. I'm from Tribe Search, recruitment boutique focused on expats. I'm also a co-founder of Global Lithuanian Leaders, a network for diaspora professionals in over 60 countries. And I had also had pleasure of working and writing the strategy for Latvia several years ago, how to tap the diaspora capital and encourage the trade and investment for Latvia, working with Leah. So this is my experience. I'm very happy to be here and waiting for the discussion to start.
Welcome, Dalia. Right, and at the very start, we should start with a little summary of, the findings that we have on this field, for which I ask Kata first to tell us, the main findings.
Thank you, Zana, and thank you for all the wonderful participants joining us. We're very excited about this discussion. So now I'm going to summarize some of the findings we already mentioned in the discussion for those who are joining now, and then I will ask my colleague, I think, Masha, to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. So focusing on return migration, we conducted about 60 interviews with managers and entrepreneurs, and about 80 interviews with return migrants, as well as thousands of survey responses to find out why people return, how they experience return, what do they do, how are they hired, what enterprises they are setting up. So it was a very spidery endeavor. And what we found is that the reasons why people return is very much linked to life cycles. So they return because of family reasons, such as children are starting school, or they got divorced, married, or new opportunities, such as I'm finishing my degree, I'm returning, I'm looking for a new job, I'm returning, I'm looking for a new challenge, I'm returning, actually, something that comes up quite a lot. And the return doesn't happen all at once. It's not like, today I'm not returning and tomorrow I am. Well, except with COVID. That was a different case. But people start thinking about returning many, many years before they actually do it. So this contemplation phase is very, very long. And only in the very last decision phase is actually the decision happening. And that is prompted by life changes very often. So these are the life changes I've been mentioning. So this is what people talk about in the interviews. And what happens when they return is that it's complicated. So there is no uncomplicated return, is what we found out. Sometimes they struggle to integrate into the labor market. They feel like their skills and education is not necessarily appreciated. Society has changed. Their networks have changed. So it's almost like moving into a new country. A new country they thought they know, but actually they realize they don't know it so much, because as they changed as people, the countries Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia changed as well. So if you returned, after 10 years of being abroad, suddenly it hits you how much changed. And then what I found really interesting is that once they return and they try to integrate into the labor market, we talked to managers and return migrants about what are the skills appreciated before hiring and when working. And it was about soft skills like a global outlook. Some people compared, especially during COVID, return migrants to tanks. This is not funny in the current environment, but they said they just plow through these muddy fields of uncertainty because they are very adaptable and they are used to things changing. And during COVID, they really appreciated that. Openness, language skills, and especially those who themselves spent time abroad were more likely to hire and appreciate return migrants. And they are also more likely to become entrepreneurs, right, Masha?
Yes, right, Kata. They are more likely to become entrepreneurs. We actually conducted an empirical study of Latvia as donor country, and to understand how the return migrants behave as entrepreneurs. Our analysis was based on the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor data for the 4 previous years. We added a block of questions just to capture the return migrants, and what we actually found that we analyzed what we also wanted to analyze. We wanted, first of all, capture the perceptions toward entrepreneurship, aspirations, and activity level of the return migrants, and also compare these factors to those entrepreneurs without foreign experience. And it was very interesting to figure out that toward the actually, both entrepreneurs with and without foreign experience, they see opportunities for business kind of in a similar level. But
those who, within those who see opportunities, return migrant entrepreneurs, they are much less afraid of failure. They also consider their skills, their entrepreneurial skills, quite high. And they usually much less frequently get involved in necessity entrepreneurship compared to those without foreign experience. They also, what is also very interesting, that they quite oftenly find themselves in the role of informal investors when they invest the money, savings from abroad to some local companies. But if they create their own enterprises here in Latvia, they usually are more export-oriented, growth-oriented, and more innovative compared to those created with people without this foreign experience. I think that these are the main results of our study.
Yeah. Thank you for the summary. And now we turn to our panelists and experts here. And I think as a first question, we would like to ask, well, all the findings that we have presented here about the skills and about experiences, how does this echo your experience? And perhaps, I don't know, with whom we could start. Maybe we can start with Zane.
Well, it fully, coincides with my own personal experience, but also with experience we got after working in Latvia Works movement with more than 100 employers who committed, each of them, by signing the paper that they will return at least one person back to Latvia. What I think, I won't repeat what has been already said. What I find interesting in this, and it's kind of more, I want to defend a bit employers. I was listening to the findings part, and it's true, some of them are reluctant in hiring, but in honestly, they find it also hard oftentimes to do it. Just to understand, most of Baltic companies, their HR function is heavily underfunded and understaffed. So basically, you have one person doing it all. Andzelika can tell how that works. So your possibilities to actually figure out how it works, find basically create a pipeline of these amazing candidates and talents who have emigrated is super difficult. Your capacity to check their background, very limited. Your capacity to ensure the support needed, because you're right, and I can tell you many stories about how people, how difficult they find to integrate back, even though it's the same language, seemingly the same background. So and all of these reasons combined oftentimes mean that it's easier not to do it, so it takes much more. And then there's other side to that, and again, I'm the biggest supporter, and as I told, I think most of my team have all been abroad and come back, and every year I write at least 1 or 2 recommendation letters to someone else to leave Latvia, and so on and so forth. But oftentimes I find also that the programs chosen by some of Latvian students are quite naive. So if you decide to go to study fashion management, well, let's be honest, there's no fashion industry in Latvia. So it's not that employers don't appreciate, the fact that you've gone and you've studied, but there's literally no industry for that in here. And oftentimes, the degrees chosen in the fields of, business or design, are actually even weaker than some of the, you would find here, for example, in Stockholm School of Economics. So the fact that you have gone somewhere is great. It definitely shows, if nothing else, then certain traits. The traits that you're less risk averse. So you have more courage, you have more stamina, you have more resilience, and that also counts. And then that's why I would say that you are already a better candidate for future employment in many ways, and definitely for entrepreneurship. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be much better than some of the local candidates, because as I told, some of these the studies chosen are not related. They oftentimes also weaker. So there's two sides of the coin. So I just wanted to tell that I myself have always been in that camp, and heavy supporter, like everyone should go, we should do absolutely everything possible to get people back, and I still believe in that. But I just wanted to say that for employers' perspective, it's a bit more difficult. So the policy, have to be drafted. It's super complicated topic, and that's something else I would like later we'll discuss as for policy implications. It's so much more difficult than doing good marketing. It's so much more difficult. So, but we'll get there, I'm sure.
Yes, a little follow-up question, Zane, on the Latvia Works movement.
Yes.
How did that turn out? Maybe if in a couple of words.
I think that the results were extremely promising. As I told, more than 100 companies sign up. We know that, those who reported suggested that more than 30 people, I think, I can't even say, Latvian army itself were part of the movement. So every year they managed to get something between 30 and 50 people back. So if you look at the number of people that have been returned via this, sort of say, or indirectly, it's actually considerable. The other part, and that's why I know what I'm saying is that there were tons of difficulties, as I told, for both employers, for potential re-immigrants, for state to understand what are policy implications. So just by doing that, and we did it together with Ričards and Tele2 and a broader team, we realized how difficult it is. So it's So and it stopped once COVID started, and we kept saying at the beginning of COVID, trust me, we'll be back where we started in just a year, and we were. But now, of course, we have another layer of difficulty, which is war, where I think many Remigrees are thinking twice. Do I want to move back to a region what is at the front of aggressor, and it will continue being there,
More challenges. Okay, thank you. And since Ričards, you already have a microphone, maybe continue with you.
Just adding up on what Zane said, I think that it's not a question whether we need those people to come back. We really, as employers, as a country, facing the labor market that we have today, which is essentially driven by skills match and driven by fairly low unemployment rates. Even now, as the economic situation is quite hard due to war, due to the end of pandemic, etc., it makes total economic strategic sense to really get back as many people as we can, and also to attract more people, not only from Remigrants, but from the wider audiences. The question is about the practicalities of it. As Zane mentioned, there are tons of issues, tons of questions that these people face, and the complexity can be very hard. Many people return not only themselves, but they bring partners with them. They bring families. And so there are the questions of not only whether they themselves can reintegrate and become part of a society, but whether their families can find, whether the children can find where to study, whether their spouses can actually learn the language, whether they can find a job here on the market with the skills that they have. But looking at the skills that you have uncovered in your research, I think this is exactly what we need. As in our labor market right now, we have the mismatch, and we really lack both soft skills, we lack entrepreneurial skills, we lack digital skills. these are all of the things that we really need. So it's a question of really figuring out the details and the practicalities. How do we create a service sort of for these people that they can apply for and get into the jobs, get back into the country.
Right. I think perhaps in one of the next questions we will come to what we can actually do. So thank you so far. And then we still follow the same route we have. Andzelika, what's your insights and according to your experience, how does the results look?
I have to say no doubts that the organizations are gaining to having the people who have been abroad. The same what mentioned Zane, and also the research shows that these skills, and these are the soft skills, which are very, very much needed in the local companies. International companies are more open for these, but also I see that the local companies who have been experienced to hire these people who have been abroad, they also agree that this is the more much potential they open, is definitely. And also I believe the more diverse teams we have in an organization, again, we really get more power, more potential we can for the business and also organization. And I wish that we could also get these people, return migrants, we could get in the state organizations. I would say that would be the most gain for our country, so as well. And also, these are the people who could bring global outlook, and also from their steps they can choose and they can see that what they can do also the state organizations, how can they support these returning migrants to get back. And I think this is what we should strive to get these people also in the state organizations.
Right. Yes. Also bring in some new skills and experiences there, right? Thank you, Andzelika. And then could we maybe ask Dalia to share your experience from Lithuania as well?
Yeah, so I totally agree with what's been said before. And I guess it's a trend everywhere, especially with the post-COVID effect and remote work. I believe we have actually to look a bit broader in our work labor market and the countries. Are they actually ready for not only for the diaspora returnee talent, but for the international talent? And you have to look at the path of the international talent, and mainly to look at the diaspora returnee as a person who is returning from abroad as a foreign person, because as the previous speaker mentioned, a lot of people are coming back with their international family members. So this is a very important point to address and to take a look from the kind of a customer experience, what path is ready for you when you return to your country. So, but regarding the qualities, for sure, and I'm co-founder of a recruitment boutique, which is focusing actually on expats and returnees in particular. So we are basically working with the companies who care about the international talent and who are looking for these growth mindset and broader approach, and are willing to include some diversity into their teams. And because, well, according to all of the researches and also the practical experience, yes, these people are more adaptive, more they are better at problem solving, creativity. They've got insights to new markets. They have a different approach to customer service. They have also their practices of working with international, especially remote teams, which are also a thing recently. What considers this value proposition for the for the people who are returning, and how actually we are talking to the pool of candidates which are abroad, is actually selling this chance of excelling your career fast and young. So there are a lot of cases when the people are in large corporations, and this path is quite long. When they return in their in Lithuania, or I guess in Latvia and Estonia, there is a quicker path to excel their careers. They usually get an upgrade in their roles faster. It's also the work-life balance that matters, of course, and most of the people, over 76% of the people, are returning because of the family reasons and the work balance reasons. And it's also another reason is this fast and furious teams in the Baltics. I guess it really touches upon the opportunity of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and to actually change something. So and to be the one who is coming back and making a change. So I guess it's very relevant. All the qualities are especially relevant in the post-COVID era, where this flexibility and change readiness is really one of the main trends. The diversity, and this is actually sometimes also a downside for the people who are thinking of coming back. They are thinking, okay, so where will my family members integrate fast, and is there an acceptance? Are there schools? Are there any like state English-speaking school back in the country, and so on? So this is a very strong argument to consider. And yeah, of course, salaries and the actual conditions of work and the culture matters a lot too. They usually choose to downgrade their salary up to 30-40%, but to get this closeness to the family and better life-work balance. So definitely, we among our clients, we do see these valid qualities of the returnees. But I agree also with the challenges that has been mentioned, and we have again to see what is the path of this returnee, and to help them in every way of staying connected, be attracting people, then accepting people, and then integrating, which is the very important part for returnees.
Okay, thank you, Dalia. Very useful insights indeed. And Ričards wanted to add. I just had a comment, and just to add up on the value proposition of what you just told. This year, the World Economic Forum, there's been a discussion of how the work is changing itself. There are three major revolutions going in right now. So there's technological change, which requires people to use more technologies. There's purpose-driven change, where people are demanding more purpose from their work. And there's ways of working change, where people are working hybrid modes. And I think all of these factors are actually playing favorably for the remigration and return migration, and also add up to the value proposition. As before, a couple of years ago, we were mainly thinking that we really need to find a job for a person and to set him up here. Now there are way more different formats of how people can live and work here. So I think it's a very important addition here.
And actually, at least Latvian state has demonstrated great speed in this respect by approving digital nomad visa. So basically a possibility for you residing somewhere else and working here. What is already happening, you're sitting here but working for your company, in London or wherever. So there are all these other forms, and that should be considered, and I think that provide great opportunities.
Right. And then also, Lisa, if we could turn to you and maybe from your, well, you clearly have a more cross international experience and insights on this.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I know quite little with the national context here, but I could put this maybe in an international perspective. I was planning to start in a different end, but just to pick up, it was an interesting discussion here just at the end. So maybe I can start a little bit in that, and first also on the, because I'm actually working on a project now, a tool that we have at the OECD to measure countries' attractiveness when it comes to attracting talent, what we were just talking about. So I think the comment from Dalia was interesting to say that we should look at return migrants also as international talent. And what we are doing now is to adapting also the tool a bit to these changing conditions, as we're pointing out here. And what will be more relevant in the future is also probably flexibility, that you don't just return or migrate somewhere and that's your final decision, but it's about circularity, that visas allows you to work in different places, etc. So I think this is also interesting to merge these two aspects of international talents, but also then bring in return migration in this also. You need to, as a country, actively work both to attract international talent, but also to attract back your own international talents and think about these in maybe similar ways also. And otherwise, I wanted to also congratulate you on this work. I have not seen a full report, or I imagine that there will be more concrete outputs, but it was really interesting listening to the findings here. And I think this is very much welcomed work, because one thing that we see when working on the topic of return and reintegration is really that there's a lack of data, and there is to some extent lack of research also due to the data scarcity. So having a project that collects both quantitative and qualitative data, I think it's really nice and will be very valuable, obviously. So that is already very interesting to start with, to have more concrete data and evidence on this. And looking at it from an international perspective, so as I mentioned, I worked on quite a lot of different country contexts, and one main conclusion to draw from this is that there's maybe not so much of general conclusions to draw in the end, because country context matter a lot. And also the characteristics of the return migrants, their experiences abroad, the reason why they emigrated in the first place, and the reason why they return are all aspects that are influencing their experience when returning and reintegrating into the society, but also the outcomes of return migration in terms of entrepreneurship, etc. So I think it's really nice that you are, from what I understand, looking at all these aspects also. And one thing that you mentioned that I think I've also picked up in other research that I have done is the planning phase. So people will experience the return very differently depending on if they had actually planned this for a while, or if it was an instant decision. And I have also done research in more extreme context where return was not voluntary or it was not planned. It was for different reasons, something that happened instantly. And what we see is that return and reintegration outcomes are generally much better when the person had time to plan their move and do it at the right time, etc. So that goes very much in line with I think international research also what you see. I think also very interesting what you said, the challenge of reintegration. This is also, I think, validated in other studies, that you should not underestimate the difficulties you might have to reintegrate into a society where you lived, where you grew up, but it doesn't mean that things will be smooth when you come back. The society has changed, as you mentioned, and you might be looked upon differently also. And this also depends on the country context, but the way that people see foreign experience and also how they see how return migrants behave when they return can also sort of affect how well they are received and how easy the reintegration process is, and also their own expectations. So you think that this is a country you know, and it was challenging maybe to integrate into the host country, but now returning will be easier. But actually, there are maybe more barriers than you think in these terms. So that was also, I think, interesting finding to have and see. And you could also see in your research exactly what the barriers were and the challenge, where the challenges what, which is also very, of course, useful for policymaking afterwards, also to make it easier and make the environment more more friendly for return migration. And I also found what you said about the networks, or that managers that themselves have return migration experience were the ones that were the most positive towards hiring return migration. That's also a very interesting finding, and something that maybe can be also again picked up on in policy making. How can we create more networks, strengthen the networks and the information about experiences abroad, skills recognition, how to value experiences from abroad. And here maybe return migrants, managers that have themselves return migration experience can also work at helping this also to help spreading this information in society. So I will stop there. There was a lot of other things that came to my mind when listening to the presentation, but it's really interesting findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And indeed, I'm looking at the time, and I totally see why did we not plan 3 hours for this panel, with only 1.5. So I think I would really like to sort of turn to the question of, the most important is like, okay, so what can we do? What are the things that haven't been done yet? What would be the concrete steps, how policy makers and like more generally, we could help to attract more, since we do agree that this is important and they could be agents of change. So I'm looking at Zane, but maybe if you would like to start.
Yeah, I'll start. I think those factors that are critical for ensuring that the transition is smooth have been all mentioned. It's first is finding a job, entrepreneurship as another option, but then we see housing, we see kindergarten, schools. I remember legal and financial as well. I have people who've been working for big corporates in Dubai, and they ask, how do I even transfer the money? So with all the ATML and all other aspects, so little or driving's license, so also these kind of things also matter, but in respect to job, kindergarten, schools, and housing, I really think that one can do so much more. And I don't know about Lithuania and Estonia, but Latvia have had these regional coordinators, but it's far and it's way too little, and I didn't even know if they continued the program, but they had one coordinator per region, so total of 5, or is a little, very little. If you aim at returning 15,000 people, you can't have 4 or 5 people doing the job. So I think there definitely has to be basically a support structure for these aspects. I also think that government should support the moving somewhat economically, and I know all of these attempts to suggest this have always failed, because you say, so how can I offer or give this group who left our country money where I don't give it to those who have stayed, who have continued paying taxes and so on and so forth, and then they continue going in circles and instead continue losing additional talent, where there could be made a very simple case for doing that, because you haven't paid for their continued education, which you would have paid for the talent that stays here. So and B, you'll gain these taxes once they come back, so but I think that some financial support for the housing or targeted apartments and or anything else, or targeted schools where you can ensure that there will be teachers who also speak English, or psychologists who can help, because the stories about you coming back, but your kid feeling miserable are heartbreaking, and these are often the reasons why they decide, okay, it's not working. You know, I could adapt myself, but I'm not going to put my kids through this. You know, so I think that there's definitely lots that can be done. What I don't believe in, and that was the one point I told, is the marketing case. And again, I'm a marketing person myself, and I think we should have Work in Latvia portal. We have approached government for years, saying that we would be ready to volunteer and create it. You know, Estonia have it for 9 years, 10 years. We don't work in Riga, and I think this is kind of a hygiene factor, so to say. But this will not be a reason for them to return, because Estonia is a better case, because they have reasons to be more confident and to brag about. So I don't think it's fake it till you make it case. Slightly in case of Estonia, but they have also objectively, much higher salaries for longer period of time, much better situation, when it comes to corruption, public services, and so on and so forth. And that combined is a better case for considering return. So their net migration have been positive now for a couple of years. So already, whereas we continue losing, Lithuania have done amazing work after last crisis and have picked up. Salaries have exceeded even Estonian salaries, as we know. So I see Lithuania will go the same route, and there will be more re-immigrating, and Latvia just have to do the job of again, economic development and cleaning up inefficiencies, and so.
Right, Kata, you wanted something to respond quickly.
So, in defense of marketing, I should have known better to use the word marketing when I'm talking to marketing people. I think what
I still support it. I'm just saying that it's not going to do the trick.
But I think what I'm talking about is not actually marketing, because what comes across in the interviews is the visibility. Because what return migrants have is, when you move, you check the home media all the time. 5 years on, not so much. So they actually lose touch. Yeah. And it's in the contemplation phase, when they are gearing up to a return, some of them start checking it again. Mm-hmm. But for the others, very often they don't hear about their home country. And that's what I mean, the visibility and being visible. Maybe it's not marketing.
Yes. No, and that is important. Actually, I remember Artis Kehers, he's the founder of Printify, and it's not only in respect to re-immigrants, but also international talents, like Dalia told. If you type in work in Latvia right now, it's a mess. You're not going to find any information about what it means, how it looks. It's much like you choosing university. You want to see the campus, You want to imagine how you're going to live, study there, live there. And then you also want to know all practicalities, as I told, where do I get medical care? How safe it is, Actually, another aspect, very important, and so on and so forth. And yet there's no one place you'll find it. Latvian Investment Development Agency, with our support, developed a relocation guide, which is the first guide of, with all this information. And it's really good. But it's an electronic document that one have to find in Latvian Investment Development Agency's webpage, and if you do, very good, it will help you. But as you told, both visibility, but also just information. Where do I find the whole information I need? Sorry.
Right, thank you, Zane. Ričards.
Just trying to add up on points, and I think that we have to look at this as sort of this life cycle or experience design for the people who are coming back, and I think there are things that can be done at every stage. In attraction, I've had the pleasure to go through all the comments section and then Latvia Works Facebook page, and we see that there are lots of stereotypes as well about what it is, what happens in Latvia right now, what the labor market looks like, and what are the salaries here. So there are different audiences that you can approach with different messages. But I also agree that on that sort of recruiting stage, when we talk to the people, when we try to help them figure out how they can live here, there are tons of different questions, and the last part of it is always about retention. So we really want to make sure that the people stay here. And I've heard also at the World Economic Forum an interesting example of Tunisia, where the Prime Minister was proudly sharing that they are #1 investors in education per capita in the world, and they've been focusing on it very much. But then they find themselves at the place where 1/3 of the graduates are leaving the country as they graduate. And in ICT sector, they have seen the whole cohorts of students leaving and never coming back. And they're thinking about it, that's also about the proposition of lifelong education. When people come back, whether they're able to develop the skills here on the market, because the skills will be changing, the jobs will be changing here. So it's about whether we have a supporting system for them to really develop themselves professionally and career-wise.
Thank you, Ričards, for picking up on that. Lifelong education is that, a pain for me personally as well, and we share this here. And again, looking at the time, Andzelika, what do you think are the steps that would still be needed in addition to what has been mentioned?
Yeah,
maybe?
a lot has been mentioned, but one thing that comes in mind, once again, I would look from the state institutions side, that we have this regulation of the local language. You have to know the local language. And we have also faced, and I think a lot of companies have faced, that you have to serve in the local language. And also we see that at least in the state organizations and the institutions, all the documentation, all the information flow have to be in a state language. And therefore I see that this is a challenge for the companies if they want to have even international talents, or if our Latvians or Baltic people are coming back, then their family members might be international, right? And then they have to, that's a question, how do they onboard in the companies where the regulation is that there is only state language? And I see this is also the challenge, what we could somehow, and now I have heard that due to this war that the Ukrainians people are coming, so that we are a little bit more open, so for these rules. But I think this could be also the issue where we could solve a little bit more open for international talents.
Right, a very, very important aspect also in academia, but I guess we will not touch on that at this point. And I still want to give a word to both our online participants. And I don't know, let's start with Dalia maybe. Anything else from your experience what we could do more and more, as Lithuania was, showed as a good example?
Definitely, thank you. I was anxious to react to what Zane has told on the statistics, and that's right. Since 2019, we have been experiencing the positive gain of migration, and more people are coming back. About 2,000 more people are coming back than leaving the country. And however, the recent trends related to war and post-pandemic, when people are brave enough to travel again and to experience new things, we see the reverse trend, unfortunately. And this is where actually the NGOs and governments together, and businesses are thinking how to actually tap into this the diaspora talent, but also the international talent. So I would just like also to react on this marketing side. I truly believe that both is important, but of course the execution is what matters most. So this integrity and consistency, I think this is where we can actually look up to Estonia on their consistency and integrity, that what they say is happening in Estonia, and they were the first to gain the visas. But I'm happy that Lithuania and Latvia are catching up. And unfortunately, of course, with the war situation and this terrible circumstances, but what we experience from the government side recently, this is a little bit of a boost to make the immigration procedures be more friendly for the incomers, for the incoming international people, as well as diaspora people and their families. So again, I would like to go back to this ecosystem of talent. So first of all is staying connected. So when the people leave, they are not lost, and this is what I've been working with over 13 years now. Being involved in this Global Lithuanian Leaders Organization, and also working with the strategy for Latvia to do the same path of integrating more the people who are remote from their country, especially the talent and the professionals. So staying connected, for example, with Global Lithuanian Leaders, we have 2 major annual events when most of the returnees are returning to the country. They have events where they have an opportunity to mingle with the local businesses, government, and we call them the Global Lithuanian Awards and the Forum and the summer gatherings. So these are the times when most of the returnees are returning to their actually home country, and this is a good way to talent pooling. So and there are many other ways and tactics and how to deal with people stay connected and have these talent connected. So mentoring programs, also giving the opportunities for internships, especially in the final years of the foreign universities, to stay connected with these foreign students. Well, our students studying in foreign countries in universities, and give them opportunity for internships, so they already have for them already to start building their networks back in their sending country. So this is the aspect of staying connected. The other aspect is attracting. So what regards attracting, actually the marketing is important, and really the Baltics is really playing a great role in the whole worldwide startup ecosystem, and we have a really great and interesting job proposals, especially in the growth businesses and startup and unicorns that are being developed. We have to talk about that, but we also have to talk the talk, but walk the walk. So a tax incentives is a good example, actually, to tell the government that we care. And actually, from the 1st of July in Lithuania, we will have a relocation cost for highly skilled international and diaspora returnee talents to be covered. So those who are returning, they can receive almost 3,000 euros. There is a benchmark of the salary, but I think it's a very good signal, and not only words but actions, where you get the message across to the international talent and to the especially diaspora that you are being welcomed. It's also the compensating for recruitment services for the companies, which is up to 5,000 euros. So this will start in Lithuania from 1st of July, and I'm really happy that our government is doing that. I think it's a good example how we should actually compete with a global struggle for talent. Another point that Zane was mentioning is about this one-stop shop. When you come back, it's already a stage of accepting. When you come back, I can also set an example. A few years ago, Vilnius has introduced the International House of Vilnius, where a network of national agencies, local organizations, and experts are in one place. So you as an incomer, as an international talent, you can come and you can get all the services in one stop. I think it's this physical being is also very important. And then the final and very, very important part is this integrating. So this diversity, the LGBTQ rights, the woman empowerment, the tolerance for others. It's a very important aspect also for the integration as well as education, which has been mentioned. So this is what I wanted to add up to what's been said.
Dalia, we so much appreciate, and I've been writing down this very, intensively. Thank you for this, and then now the word to Lisa to maybe reflect from your, international experience and what are the things that are we still not getting here.
I think you are already getting a lot, and you're the experts on the national context. So you know also the most on what needs to be done or should be done in this context. But I think it's interesting, yes, the one-stop shop or portals for not only sharing information, but also maybe creating communities and attraction is a good starting point. This is what we saw, for example, in this work that we did on the Western Balkans, as I mentioned briefly. And in there, we had also a discussion on a little bit the lessons learned from international experience on this. And what we saw was that it's important to make this portal, webpage, something that is alive and not just a place where you put information on one-time occasion, but if you can create some added value from having, for example, a way for people to connect both the diaspora in different countries, but also connect with employers in the origin country, etc. This can create extra value and also have a section where you answer questions that potential return migrants might have, etc. This might have a higher impact also than just being a source of information, even though that serves also a very crucial point of having these portals. But it's important to invest a lot. I think also another thing is important to listen to the diaspora. What do the diaspora want? And we've already talked about that in terms of looking at policies from a broader perspective. It's not just about the actual move, but what happens after, not just about the labor market, but it's also about the children, the family, the housing markets, the education system. All that is exactly what also we have seen and advocated for in having more broad migration policies in that regard, to first of all get to know your diaspora, what are their needs if they are considering returning, and then responding to that on a broader level. So I think that all that I've heard so far is also very much in line with what I have seen from more international perspectives and other countries as well. I think there are a lot to learn from other countries that have been successful in this respect also. But you already have a lot of knowledge and ideas here. So I'm looking forward to see these evidence coming through. And I think this is also both from academia, but also from other representatives in this roundtable, for example, could witness that there is a lot of information there. So it's important to bring all this information and experiences together also, and when creating policies. It cannot just be the policymakers in isolation doing this, but all this information from empirical research to experiences from the ground needs to come out also and form evidence-based policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And at this point, I thank every single participant of today's discussion here. That my task, as Anders said, would be to summarize now the discussion. I think the best would be if we as a project team actually, go through the recording and summarize it more professionally rather than me picking out some things that I noticed. It was, I think, absolutely very, very important points that have been noted here. So thanks so much. And we conclude this roundtable here. And then we are back in 15 minutes for those participants watching online. And we continue with the other part of the project. And for us here, we invite you for a little snack. Yes?
Just to mention those who are staying online, we are going to play some videos which tell you the summary of this research with some interesting anecdotes. So, if you don't enjoy the sunshine, tune in.
Latvia has exhibited the fastest depopulation rate in the world. Since year 2000, the Latvian population shrunk by 18% to around 1.9 million people due to a combination of low birth rates, aging population, and e-migration. More than 2,500 young people aged 15 to 24 leave Latvia every year, with an estimated 260,000 people who migrated in between 2000 and 2013 and who have not returned. It should be no surprise that remigration has emerged as a topic of national interest, in particular in the aftermath of the financial crisis. Estonia and Lithuania also faced similar challenges. To tackle the issue of depopulation, a team of researchers from Baltic International Center of Economic Policy Studies and Stockholm School of Economics in Riga undertook a study to find its causes. This study was financed by the state budget funds allocated for the funding of the fundamental and applied research projects.
Brain drain means that people leave the country. And why is it important to understand this concept? So if you look at a person roughly 21 years old, 22, who's been through university in Latvia, who's been through grade 1 to 12, who's been in kindergarten, everything. So society, meaning both public sector, government, family, they have all invested a lot in the education of this person. And if such a person leaves, it's a lot of brain power that leaves the country, brain power that we have invested in. On the gain side, so someone leaving Latvia is of course a brain gain for Germany or UK. But remigration is extremely important because then we have people coming back, bringing the gain, the brain gain to Latvia.
There was sort of a more relaxed time in migration until Latvia, Estonia and Lithuania joined the European Union. And suddenly the borders were opening up and there were all these hopes and dreams and people get access to working abroad with ease. But it's only after the financial crisis that people really started to move because these countries, especially Latvia, Lithuania, were really badly hit.
The project took a dual approach to study the brain drain, brain gain process in the Baltic countries resulting from migration. From one side, researchers took a forward-looking approach with respect to migration and studied the youth population after secondary education to learn what are high school leavers' aspirations and plans for work and studies abroad. From the other side, researchers also looked at returnees to all three Baltic states to find out answers to questions such as what skills and competencies they bring back to the Baltic states from their work or studies abroad, what is the effect of foreign experience on entrepreneurial activity and success, and what are the perceptions of employers on returned migrants as employees.
We had done various surveys and in-depth questions, and overall, I think that 10,000 people took part in the surveys and around 180 in-depth interviews were carried on.
This was a 4-year interdisciplinary project on brain gain. In the Baltics, we collected a vast amount of data in Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania.
Right, so we have, from the very beginning, we have had this sort of dual approach. So from one side, we wanted to look at the ones right before migration or in the early stage of, the ones who were probably about to leave. And those are the school graduates. And then from the other side, we would look at the post-migrants, those who have returned, and what qualities they have, how entrepreneurial they are, and what they're doing, and also look at how the labor market perceives them. So there's been always two parts of the project.
We talked to students to learn about what might happen in the future, do they plan to migrate abroad, and then do they want to come back? What we find is that almost all of the students in the sample, in the interviews, contemplated moving abroad. They didn't actually all move abroad, but they all thought about it at one point in their life.
But if you look at the people who are staying and the ones who are going abroad, that the ones who are staying, they are more concerned about the risks. They are more afraid in general, and the ones going abroad, they are a bit more risk takers.
So when we started this study, we imagined that a lot of students are going abroad to earn degrees, and that really will make a difference. In our study, we talked to employers and entrepreneurs and return migrants to see both sides of settling in and getting jobs, and what is appreciated and what is not appreciated. And we expected that having a degree from abroad will be very important, and it wasn't the case. And managers find it really difficult to know what it is because they don't know the degrees. And that goes the same way with qualifications or even work experiences. What matters though is the skills they bring back. And that is the one thing that distinguishes them from other people looking for the same job.
But you get a different skill set, and also if you work in something very technologically driven, there are countries that are more developed in general than we are here, and you might bring in then new technology, new approaches to how to do things. I think the most important one is that you are open-minded, and that is needed, I would say, be it in Latvia or be it elsewhere.
Return migrants, they actually have much more entrepreneurial capital within them. It's very important to bring them back because they will help to grow the entrepreneurial network also here in Latvia.
The study has found that remigrants are often more entrepreneurial, more confident, and with a more positive attitude towards starting a business of their own. They also bring back skills and experiences highly valued by company managers. Data also shows that approximately 17% of Latvians have prior migration experience, and 60% of Latvian graduates plan to go abroad at some point in their lives, particularly those with better grades. 17% of graduates plan to study abroad in countries such as Denmark, Netherlands, Germany, as well as UK and USA. Main reasons stated for this choice are the will to experience new countries, cultures, or simply a change of scenery. Baltic International Center for Economic Policy Studies, together with Stockholm School of Economics in Riga, conducted the largest survey of high school graduates in Latvia to find out their hopes, dreams, and future plans after graduation. It turns out that almost 60% of high school graduates want to live abroad at some point in their lives, and 17% would like to leave to study elsewhere. The interviews conducted parallel to the survey also found that not all graduates want to leave Latvia, but almost all of them have considered moving within Latvia or abroad, and they usually start thinking about these plans early in their secondary school years.
My name is Niks Dagnis, and I'm a student in bachelor program studying business and economics at the Stockholm School of Economics in Riga. Action. I would consider studying abroad because, well, I think that the education is the one thing that you have to get it right. I know a little bit how it is to live abroad, not for very long periods of time, but yeah, I'm not afraid of going abroad if I need to.
Hello, my name is Markus Valtais, and I am a year 1 bachelor student studying economics and business at the Stockholm School of Economics in Riga. Action. And I would like to do my master's definitely abroad, because honestly, I don't think that Latvia has very high level master's degrees, especially in economics and business. So I would like to move either to France, maybe if staying in Europe, or maybe even to the United States.
That age, they also want to go abroad for the experience. Then, again, Latvia being a small country, which means that if you have a very specific interest particularly in terms of further education, it might be that the Latvian higher education system cannot really offer this opportunity. So you have to go abroad to pursue your interest.
Yes, for those who want to go abroad, the rational and economic factors are very low in the list. So what they do why they want to go abroad is to see different cultures, to experience life abroad as such, to see globalized world and different lifestyle.
What happened when the pandemic hit is that people were planning to move abroad, but the borders were closed and they had no idea what's coming. There was a lot of confusion and uncertainty, and students didn't know whether it's wise to move abroad. They were afraid of being stuck abroad, on-site hybrid education, and it was very unpredictable. Rent was often very expensive abroad. They missed their family. They were isolated. So if they didn't have time to integrate into the host society yet, because they just arrived and it was all online, they didn't meet their fellow students, they felt lonely.
The COVID-19 pandemic influenced the student plans as well as their minds. The mental health impact of the pandemic meant that students were less likely to study abroad or start an enterprise. Even their anxiety levels, measured by the perceived stress scale, were above average. However, the pandemic did bring some positives as well. Interview results showed higher involvement in family, social, and economic activities. When it comes to choice of destination for their study plans, the data shows that 83% of Latvian students would like to stay in their home country, while the other 17% who wish to study abroad prefer locations such as UK, Denmark, Netherlands, Estonia, Russia, USA, Ireland, Sweden, Germany, Poland, and Canada. Baltic International Center for Economic Policy Studies, together with Stockholm School of Economics in Riga, surveyed and interviewed returned migrants in all 3 Baltic countries to find out why they came back, what are they doing after returning, and how being back home makes them feel.
Life events. So falling in love, my children are starting school, family planning, a new job, looking for a new job. So they are not independent of perhaps thinking about moving back, of longing for the Latvian or Estonian nature and countryside, or the lifestyle of not having the, working crazy hours lifestyle, which is what a lot of people had in London. But all those reasons accumulate and almost there needs to be something that activates it. Having said that, one of the interesting things that came out of the data is that especially in Lithuania and Latvia, families are thinking about this. So they are very much attached to the Latvian and Lithuanian heritage, the language. And when they choose to return, having their children in Latvian or Lithuanian schools is one of the biggest factors. They say, I want my children to learn my language, to be part of that culture, to be part of the rituals and festivities and be close to the grandparents.
But pandemic played an important role in the last 2 years in terms of these flows of people across borders.
There was a online, offline, on-site hybrid education, and it was very unpredictable. So they often decided to come home for a period before moving abroad again, continuing their studies online. But then it was complete chaos, and eventually a lot of them got tired of it. So they took internships and jobs in Latvia, and they are staying now.
Findings showed that the pandemic alone was both a reason and a catalyst, accelerating life events and leading to decisions to return. Two types of returnees emerged from the research data. One group had been thinking about returning, but without a specific time in mind. These feelings and the opportunity to return played out against the backdrop of having thought of returning before. For them, the pandemic sped up the decision to return. At the core of the reasons, such as missing people and their home, align with the reasons found important before the pandemic. However, loneliness and longing intensified and catalyzed the decision-making process from contemplation to action. The other group felt such an impact on their livelihood and employment that they returned without prior contemplation of doing so. This was especially true at the beginning of the pandemic, when the economy was halted. For this group of migrants who returned early in the pandemic, their daily lives collapsed, so they decided to return to Latvia quickly. They also contemplated leaving quickly, but the global situation remained very complicated. Lockdowns, quarantines, changing regulations and cost of living, combined with the lack of funds, resulted in them staying. At the same time, a relatively large number of respondents also see the positive impact of the pandemic, the opportunity to slow down the daily race and understand their true wishes and values, as well as learn to constantly plan time, gain new experience, and develop their personal growth. Baltic International Center for Economic Policy Studies, together with Stockholm School of Economics in Riga, studied the case of Latvia as a migration donor country to learn how remigrants participate in entrepreneurship back at home. Total early-stage entrepreneurial activity rate of returned migrants is twice as high as that for non-migrants, 21% to 10%. The study looked into questions such as: how does population with foreign experience compare to non-migrant population regarding entrepreneurial activity? And can foreign experience be seen as a vehicle for entrepreneurial activity? As well as, is it worth looking at returned migrants as agents of business growth and innovation? Researchers measured entrepreneurial activity and explored sources that contribute to higher propensity, level of ambition, attitude towards starting a business, as well as public sentiment towards entrepreneurs.
Returned migrants, they actually have much more entrepreneurial per capita within them, and being like an agent of the entrepreneurship activities, it's very important to bring them back, because they will help to grow the entrepreneurial network also here in Latvia.
So everyone who is abroad could be a potential resource in Latvia. Then what makes them even more attractive is that they have foreign experience. They might bring in ideas on how to do things differently. They might have some ideas when it comes to startups or entrepreneurship.
The main reasons for returned migrants to start a business are the wish to make a difference in the world and to build a very high income. They are less frequently driven by necessity when entrepreneurship is set to earn a living. Several factors that are accumulated abroad have been found to significantly increase the probability to become an entrepreneur in comparison to non-migrants, such as financial capital, business networks, and education.
The experience they have from abroad, the experience they gain by working in a different environment, being subject to different types of businesses, different types of whatever activities, is something that is very useful for any society, and Latvia is no exception.
Latvia has really cool companies. I don't think I would be allowed to do this video if I didn't say that. So Latvia has very good companies. And I think there is a budding startup scene. And there are companies that are very successful.
The people that leave are usually the ones who are a bit more active, they are a bit braver, they are a bit more willing to take risks. And that type of person is exactly what we want to come back, because if you are brave, if you're willing to take risk, if you're open-minded, then you can bring a lot of things back. You might start a business, you might develop a business here.
Good afternoon, welcome to the last roundtable of the day. We are very excited to have some educational masterminds actually with us. What we are going to do is a short round of introductions. So I would like everyone who is not on the project to introduce themselves. We will do nice order. And then we will have a summary of our findings for those who have not been able to watch the previous sessions. And then we will have, I hope, a very fruitful discussion. So let's start with introductions. You all know Anders Paalzow, who is a lead of this project. And may I introduce one of our students?
Well, hello. My name is Andzelika. I'm a student at SSC Riga, first year student, and was invited to participate. Yeah.
Yes, hello. My name is Dana. Now I'm working in education and technology company Lielvārds, but before I helped to build a school called Cēsu's New School that's already grown to high school. And before I actually have worked in many NGOs, and also myself have studied abroad for a year in France and also in Norway.
Yes, my name is Igor, and I'm Ogre Municipality Education Superintendent, so responsible for the school district of Ogre Municipality.
Hello, my name is Inga Treimane, representative of Riga State Gymnasium number 2. And I'm the teacher there, mostly involved in teaching the last year students, grade 12 students, and I'm also diploma program coordinator. So we have this international baccalaureate program. So many of our graduates are actually going abroad and continue studies abroad. This will be my perspective.
Thank you. And also we have Zane Varpina, our colleague, and Marija. And Zane, may I ask you to quickly summarize the findings that we have on this education?
Quickly, which I will do. Yes. So this is it is a part of the project when we are looking at those, you know, at the point of life when people are at their first major decision, when they are graduating from the school, and so what is to follow. So what we have been doing, we have been surveying for 3 consecutive years secondary school graduates at the point of time when they are right about to graduate. So, you know, a month before they are doing that, about their plans for the year to follow, what they're going to do, and also about what are their life aspirations and plans for mobility and living abroad and so on, along with other questions. But now we concentrate really on the mobility plans. So also to be emphasized that we have pretty good coverage of schools from Riga to regions to as far as Daugavpils and Zilupe, different language schools, also gymnasiums and you know, the regular secondary schools, bigger and smaller. So I think we with a pretty good validity, we can say that we can speak about all secondary school graduates population. So what we find is first, 9 in 10 graduates intend to continue studies after they graduate from secondary school, which is not surprising per se. But from those who intend to continue their studies, there are 17% who want to study abroad, with the major directions being, well, UK, Netherlands and Denmark being the first three, but then along with other countries such as even US, Russia used to be a target destination, probably not so much anymore, and a number of others, including Germany and Sweden and others. But then when we especially were interested in what were their plans and ideas if they wanted to go and live abroad for some period in their life, which is the way how we phrase the question. Obviously understanding that at that point they don't have a very clear idea when exactly and for how long. So we wanted to sort of understand what is the sentiment of theirs. Then we find it's 2/3 of the students say that they for sure or very, very likely are about to, they want to live abroad for some period in their life. Well, there was a certain percentage that hadn't decided, but there were just, 2-3% who said that, well, definitely not. So I think this sort of illustrates the sentiment in graduate school graduates. And when looking at the reasons, sort of also asking what are the reasons why they wanted to live abroad, we sort of expected, the traditional migration theory, like, better salaries and better opportunities. But then we find that by far the most important reason was they wanted to experience different life, different cultures, living abroad as such, global world and things like that. Yeah, so I think this is pretty well where I can sort of stop with a summary here and continue with the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Zane. And the other thing that we noticed is that they start thinking as early as 9th, 10th grade. So I think that is perhaps the summary, and these thoughts are a good introduction to ask you, how does these findings reflect on your experience working with students, educational institutions?
Yes, thank you. Well, the good thing is that your findings correspond quite closely to my personal experience, so that's a good thing. From my feeling with discussions with students, it's about going abroad is about challenging yourself, having adventure, fulfilling the dream, and challenging yourself either socially or culturally or academically, or, which I think wasn't mentioned, athletically. In my experience, we have quite a lot of outgoing flow to the US with athletic scholarships. I have 2 students of mine that I have taught that currently are studying or have recently graduated universities in the United States that have been there on athletic scholarships. So that's another facet to look at. And yes, it is about the dream, the idea of having that experience. And the thing that has changed from my time as a student is that the dream has become quite real, in a sense that there are other contemporaries, friends, and others around me around the student that have had that experience already. And another thing is YouTube, because you have quite a lot of stories. One, what is my day in Cambridge? And they wake up and then they do the morning routine and go all through the day. So it becomes from something very distant and unrealistic to something very close to the reality. Still, my hypothesis is, and from my experience, that mostly students with means, do get to experience that. I didn't hear yet, or maybe overheard the part of discussion which is about what are the people, who are the people who have the chance to go abroad. And that's one interesting thing to look at as well.
So, yeah, I will quickly skip to follow what Igor said, because also my experience corresponds what you have seen in findings, so I won't repeat them. But what I liked what Igor said, that I also see that now students more and more try to go to study abroad or go to work or even do the voluntary work. And if before there was movies that inspired them to go abroad, and now there are influencers and YouTube. But there's one more thing that is going on in schools, and that's really, really great. Schools start to do more and more exchanges. So schools are going to other countries, and also other countries are coming to Latvia. So they build relationships with the other students from other countries. So they either they want to go to that country to study, or it like gave them the picture that they would like to have another experience. And also it's sometimes you don't even need to go somewhere. There's these twinning projects where they meet just online, and this is also a great experience that motivates them to go abroad. And one more thing that has changed, I must agree with Igor that mostly families that can afford can support their kids to go study abroad. But in last years, more and more families start to travel, so they also see what's going on outside, even if they go just to some hotels and just do touristic stuff. So that also helps. And there are also programs where one student can go switch families and spend some time abroad. So all these activities really help to show that it's a really great opportunity to go abroad and study for some time. So more students also in this secondary school part or high school part also go abroad and have this international experience. Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can use the microphone. Thank you. So yeah, just wanted to add to Igor's and Dana about who are those who are going. Well, what we have seen, we did ask them also if they have any previous migration or living abroad experience, and it turns out about 15% have lived abroad already, which is again pretty surprising me. Well, by living abroad, we understand 3 months and more consecutive sort of living abroad. So that's could be rather short, but it's not really just traveling. So it is actually living abroad. And then in terms of those who show high aspirations to go abroad for studies and living abroad, are the ones who have higher grades. Not surprisingly, again. Also, more of those are among minorities. Russian-speaking, they are more prone to sort of be willing to live abroad. So those two things to emphasize and know.
And then we talk about money after that, I think.
Okay, from my observations, your findings are very much in line with what is happening in our school. So in terms of directions or the countries where students go to study, until Brexit, the United Kingdom was #1 country, and good schools there. Now, this year, the Netherlands have been #1 country because they don't have to pay, just the living costs. Denmark, and a few students also go to the United States, but this is mainly related to the sports and their achievements there. And the International Baccalaureate program is for the students who actually plan to go abroad, and I would say some 50-60% of our graduates actually end up somewhere abroad, and 90% of those, I would say, are academic studies, universities, colleges, and they are targeting for bachelor's degrees. And there are also a few students who actually don't know what to do, where to study, where to go. And then they take a gap year. Usually they go abroad, do some voluntary work, or just just go there to understand what they would like to do with their lives. And not long ago, I was contacted by one of our graduates, a girl who ended up in Australia because she was the one who didn't know what to do after her studies. And now, 2 years after graduations, she sent me a message, please send my graduation documents and the diploma number and everything. I want to study in Australia. So she has ended up there. Yeah, so that's interesting.
Thank you. That Australia, as far as one can go, right? Before we turn to our Andzelika, our student's voice, I just want to have a quick word on the means. So we talked about that during the interviews, and we did I think 50 interviews all together. And there were 2 phases of dreaming of going abroad. The very naive phase, I would say, when they hear the stories and they think about going abroad and they sort of plan it 9th and 10th grade, but they don't actually start doing the research. And then there's the crunch time, as I like to call it, when they actually look at the price tag of going to Denmark. And this is actually where a lot of people change their minds. So they were thinking about going abroad, but then they ask people how do they survive there. They have contacts there, and they say, okay, so education is free, but rent is really expensive. I would like to know what jobs I can do there. And that is actually when finances for a lot of the students really mattered. So not in the hoping, dreaming phase, but when it actually came to application phase, they suddenly realized what is it that they can do. Some of them still go for it, surprisingly, with working many jobs, especially during the summer, but many stopped doing that. So I would like to hear your reflections on that later. But for now, I would like Andzelika to tell us about her journey. Did you think about going abroad?
Thanks for the question. I thought of going abroad because I had quite nice grades, and I also passed IELTS exam, and I had all the opportunities, but I didn't really see a purpose because there is a nice opportunity to study in my home country, where my family and almost my friends are, and study in English, and then after graduating have nice opportunities as well. So I didn't even consider the option going abroad because I already a long time ago I knew that I will apply here, and I was trying to get here by attending open door days since I was in the 10th grade, I guess. So I was really passionate about this option, but still I have a lot of friends that applied abroad, and some of them are happy with their choice, and also the reflection on your findings that people start to think about going abroad in the 9th, 10th grade. Yeah, it's true, because first of all they have to learn the language, because many people go to Germany or the Netherlands and they have to learn the German, for example, also pass some requirements, international exams, IELTS, for example, and just to improve the grades. Many of these people started thinking about going abroad long time ago, before the graduating. Also, as I have written here, the relatives that live abroad also influence their decision, because some people would really like to study abroad or just live abroad because of the opportunities and challenges, but they're really afraid because of the financial situation that you mentioned. But if they have some relatives, for example, one of the parents or aunt or any other relatives, they feel this confidence, they have someone to go to this country, and also the experience of the peers also influences their friends and also graduates of the school that come to school and try to promote the university. For example, my school was not in Riga, it was in Ventspils, and some people from the Netherlands, from the UK, and from Russia came and trying to promote the university, come to us. It's really nice.
Thank you. That's really interesting, actually, and it, I think, links to the next question I would like to ask our panel members is, working in the districts and the schools, what you already mentioned that there's a lot more YouTube, there's a lot more influencers, there's a lot more exchanges, but who do students talk to about these thoughts, and what tools do they have available that helps them make this decision in your experience?
Well, it really differs. We do have career advisors in schools. Now, almost in every school, it depends like how much they work there and how much they can consult. But so that's one opportunity. But usually they consult more on what are opportunities in Latvia, what they can do. But well, it really differs in schools and towns. Like there are strong NGOs where they can get support, and they can like often schools organize meetings with graduates, and then there is a chance to talk and see where to go and what are the opportunities. So nowadays, I would say that students search themselves quite a lot because they can find online and do quite good research. But I was thinking about the previous question, like about this application part, and I do agree that in that point when they start to research the documents and start to understand how to get there, where to live, what to do, how to do, there is this part of students that just stop, and it usually goes together with how strong was the intention. What was the reason they wanted to go abroad? Was it just some influencer thing? Oh, that would be really nice. Or there's really a specific school, place, or program where you want to go. So it also helps, then try to find at least scholarships. That is one of the things what they start to do when they realize, oh my God, we don't have that much money. So they try to apply for scholarships and try to find funds. So that's one of the first steps if they realize they can't afford it. And of course, the second one is search for the job. But usually they realize that you can't really manage to earn that much money here in Latvia. So they use a gap year. But then they go not just for voluntary work, they go to work. And usually what I know the case is they go to that country to work there, and so that's one of the ways. So yeah, many different ways how to get there. Mm-hmm.
You've been writing a lot, and you have your mic up. May I invite you to join this discussion as well?
Yes, I'll be brief with this one. I think that the intention in the 9th or 10th grade to study abroad is a very, very strong driver that can and should be used to motivate student to do as good as he or she can. So I think that's sometimes underused resource. So let's say you want to go to Glasgow and study media. What do you have to have, not only to go to Glasgow, but to succeed there? Because the case in Latvia, unfortunately, is that less than 50% students actually graduate university once they get in. So getting into university is the first step. Less than 50% graduate, and knowing that we do have a strong. There's nothing better than a young person that wants something. I mean, you can use that in all the good ways, and finding that and mapping the way not only to get into that school but also to be successful is one thing that we haven't mastered yet. And one of the reasons is that we don't have that good career support or counseling support in schools. We ought to do much better than we, on average, do in our country in this one. Just to give an example, we will have we have had national project on that finances these counselors that ends on 31st of August this year. So now it's up to schools. And some of the schools are big enough and powerful enough and wise enough to use that resource to put in their money into this, and some of them won't be that strong. So this one is it's not about going abroad. It's just using that willingness to go abroad to get most of the young people. That's one thing I would like to add as well.
And I would like to comment a little bit about counseling services at schools, and I fully agree that career consultant services are helpful to a limited stage and mainly for personality tests, for students to understand are they good for this or that program, or but not about choosing the best universities abroad. And we recommend external consultation companies like Kalba, like Ego Perfectus or Baltic Council. These are very popular with our students. And also there is this international exhibition of education where students go and get some insights. And this is also organized by the same consulting companies. I would say that students learn a lot from their friends. Yeah, they contact each other, they know who is studying where, how things are going there. So I think this is number 3. And number 4 would be our graduates. Yeah, we invite the graduates regularly. They come to our school, they talk to diploma program students, they tell about their experiences, and then the students can contact each other individually. There is very good experience in international schools, because for international schools, this is big business. They have developed this function of consulting. They organize seminars with parents, and I have been present and I have observed, and this is the whole process of how to select, first of all, which is the best program, then how to decide which are these aspects you will be able to look at in order to select the best school in terms of geographical location, in terms of costs, in terms of your personal interests and campuses and what extra activities the schools are offering. So this is really, really well-developed function, and we are trying to do as much as we can, and also with writing or helping to write the motivation letters and all the documentation for the students, recommendation letters from the teachers. We're learning a lot, but in ordinary schools, this is not developed at all. I agree.
I remembered one more thing. I also think that we need to start to talk about the career choice already in 9th and 10th grade. And usually we do that, but it's more in the level of, what you want to be when you grow up, in that kind of sense. And then, of course, they start to think and, and dream. And then usually it's already 12th grade. And in Latvia, what we do, we apply in universities in summer. But if you want to go abroad, quite often you have to apply already in March, sometimes even a year before. So I know a few cases when they decided, okay, I want to go. I start to do the research, and then they understand it's too late. And then there's this big decision: take a gap year, or start to study here in Latvia at least for 1 year, or go somewhere else. So that's also one of the cases that influence what they do after school.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question to you. One thing you don't know about me, many things you don't know about me, that my parents are teachers, my sisters are teachers, everyone I know is a teacher. And one thing I know about teachers is that they are busy people. One should not underestimate the workload. So how do you think teachers are prepared to support students in this sort of picking a university, whether abroad or home, and can they be prepared even? I mean, is this realistic to expect from them?
It's short answer. They shouldn't be. It's very very specific function. Your not average, but no teacher should be prepared for this. It's a student's counselor's job to be prepared for this. It's a very specific function, and if it's done by teachers, probably it's not the right thing to do. So, no, it's just another profession altogether.
From our experience, teachers are involved because there is no other staff to write recommendation letters, and also to prepare some students for the interviews. For example, we had a graduate last year who wanted to go to Cambridge, and she did go, and she was prepared by chemistry teacher and with really good results, and she also helped with her internal assessment or research work, so that was really well done. But it took so much time from teachers' daily routine that we just can't ask all teachers to do this, and this is extremely much. This is a lot of additional workload for those teachers.
Just to contribute to the same career advisor question, we did ask our respondents also about with whom they talk, like discuss their future plans. And it turns out the career advisor from everyone in the list was in the last place. So yeah, I think there could be, schools where this really works and is highly developed. But if you look at the average temperature in the hospital, that's not where they go to. And according to what we see, they talk to parents and friends. Yes, teachers and siblings are also there, but it looks like it's really the parents and friends. So I'm really wondering if some of the responsibility and more information should be shifted towards parents, as they seem to be the ones to also play a role. It's a question rather than statement, and Igor is nodding. So,
I'll give the career teacher counselor idea has been fundamentally flawed in Latvia for the last 4 years. So what they did and what the ministry did in the project, they said that career counselors should receive a minimum wage. So the people you can attract with the minimum wage are not the people that you look up to for career advice, don't you? And that's so we have spent so much money just in waste. Not that the teachers or career counselors are bad in any way. You just cannot attract with that level of remuneration the people you need to provide that level of support that is needed for going abroad and things like that, even choosing the best university in Latvia. So a lot of money spent not very wisely by saying the person who will give you career advice, you cannot pay him or her more than the minimum wage. So should we speak to work with parents? No, we should pay people who ought to be professionals in this the right wage and attract the right people. So it's not about shifting from counselors to parents. It's about getting in good counselors.
Just a brief note to add. I fully agree, and I also say this is not just the issue of payment and salary. This is also how much can one person do with 800 students. Yeah, at our school we just have one consultant for 800 students, and actually this person cannot do individual consultations. So the main focus, 80%, is just events for school, for classes, where some experts come in, students go and visit and see what is happening outside school. But as soon as it comes to individual level, the students mostly seek for help outside school.
Thank you. I think you started the next and last part of this discussion if you were to put together a wish list. a wish list that, you know, would allow you to create something that helps students to make these choices in a sustainable and educated way on time, so they can apply for the university and the degree they want to, and their choice is deep enough that they don't make rushed or decisions they regret later, like coming back in a year because it's not quite what it said. What would be on your wish list? And that includes you. What is it that you wish you had when you were applying to universities?
I think this question is not really relevant to me because like I knew that I will apply here a long time ago, but maybe for my ex-classmates or just peers who are just thinking about applying to the university, I think it would be really important for them to remind that education is really important because they didn't know that where to apply for the last moment. I mean, some people did, the people that went abroad and who took the education really seriously and prepared for it a long time ago from this 9th, 10th grade. But some people who didn't really have this really well academic performance, they didn't know where to go. And maybe this career advisor would be really relevant in our school as well, in my ex-school, not here, because we didn't have one. I didn't have a chance to speak to any academic, career advisors. We just had a school psychologist who prepared some personality tests for us, but no one took these tests seriously because like some people had this, you're gonna be the gardener, and like not good. No one took this seriously, and the only option was to talk to the teachers, but teachers are not really professional in this area because only thing they know is the graduates, they're ex-graduates who study somewhere and get some feedback from the university, and it's the only thing they know. And they're not really professional to consult people where to apply. And I think it would be really, really good for students to have these career advisors at schools, to have individual meetings in case they need only for half an hour at least, just to speak to them, because many students are really have really mixed thoughts about just the area where to study, not the country. And if there would be an individual session, just I have this kind of interest, where can I apply? It would be really, really good.
Thank you. Who would like to come next with the wish list?
I would like to connect with the vision, and I would like to add that there are two aspects, two sides of this. This is the professional education you get abroad, and this is also the personality and soft skills. And I wish schools could do more for the development of skills like self-development, time development, responsibility development, self-awareness, but we're changing very slowly. There is this new School 2030 program. Yeah, they have good intentions. They have very good intentions, but first of all, the teachers have to be educated. Yeah, this will take some time. How will they do this? Not very clear at the moment. But if I were an employer and if I had to recruit some of my graduates in my company, I would not select all those who have been abroad. Never, ever. Because I know them and I know the personality side of them, and I know how unreliable some of them are at the moment. And so I would say this is also as important as their professionalism.
Thank you. If we have time, we come back to that, I hope. But Igor, do you have a wish list?
Huge, always. I just wanted to add to the, just agree with the idea that you expressed, and that was reiterated earlier by Zane. When she said that not always the people that come from abroad with an experience abroad are better than those who have studied here. And I think that the trait that is very common is for kids who go abroad is courage, but also it's not about only courage, it's about taking not unnecessary risks, but playing a bit, having fun a bit. And you can only have that much people like that in the room. You should also have other personality traits for it to work. So I completely agree with that idea that the mix is probably is better. But getting back to the wish list, secondary schools should be larger in Latvia. Your school is a good example in the size of it, and in Ogre we will have a school of 600 secondary school students 10 to 12. So we will have that model, and you must have enough the organization big enough that can enable proper support in very specific areas. So that's one thing on my wish list. Nothing new. This has been in the works for many years. But one specific thing I would like to add is I wish we could map the way from the 9th grade to a good university abroad or a good university in Latvia for a kid who doesn't have resources. So, and he won't have resources. So how can we? And he is not top 3 or 5% in the results. So how could we map a way for him? What job opportunities can we give? What actions can we take to make this kid's dreams make into plans and then into actions and then into positive result? So that's one thing I'm very interested in.
Well, so many thoughts after what you said. I was thinking, like, from what experiences we can learn, like what is already working, and then I remembered that. Well, I don't know the statistics, but I think exchange years in universities, these programs in universities work quite well, and quite many students go for them. So there's something good in that system. So probably this is one of the ways how to help students to get experience outside Latvia. And I think I also don't want to argue about, like, are those people better who come with the international experience, but at least for 1 year or for those 3 months or for some time to go abroad, it is really, really healthy. So I think that's also one opportunity, just to use these exchange years, and that system works because there are schools you can go. There's, of course, there's funding that also helps those students that can't afford to go abroad and study for longer time. So there is a clear application form. There is a person you can go to. So I think that system really, really works. And one other thing, thinking about those students who can't afford, I was that student who couldn't afford, but I was also one of those who traveled around Europe, all secondary school, and how I did that through these projects, exchange projects. And I also got into universities in USA because I also got in scholarship to pass the exams, but I didn't get scholarship to cover living costs. So what I wanted to say, these projects, especially in the European Union, these are just amazing instruments to help students, to get this experience outside Latvia, even for short time. So that's one of the ways. And I think like if the students will find ways how to go abroad if they want, but they need to know that there are these opportunities. They need to know those names of the schools or those professions to search for. For example, one of the students was searching for horse dentist. Like, I didn't even know that there is a special program for that, but they found somewhere it, and probably because of some kind of other experience. So I think that's the way, and then they will search and they will find, and if we just give them this knowledge, then it will work.
Thank you. I think our time is, up a while ago. But I really enjoyed this discussion, and I feel like I'm taking away so much. Like with the previous roundtable, I think we will put together a proper summary and share it. But what really stood out to me is inclusivity, like supporting students, no matter what the background, the hope or dream, to get where they want to be and where they deserve to be, and motivating them throughout. So I think I welcomed your wish list and your suggestions. Thank you for that. And thank you for participating in this roundtable, for all of you. So now we are going to have very short closing remarks for the conference. And then I think we continue research. And I do the closing remarks, I guess. Yeah. So after a day of very interesting and inspiring discussions with experts, students, practitioners, we are full of inspiration and hope that our study actually will benefit not just practitioners, but policymakers and the academic community as well. So I think thank yous are due. Thank you for the wonderful research team and the participants. Thank you for all the people filling out our surveys and talking to us during the interviews. Thank you for a very international research team, our PhD students, without whom it would not have been possible in Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia, because this was an international project. And thank you for the funder, the Latvian Science Foundation, for making this possible. And of course, thank you for you watching or listening or joining at any point. The recordings will be available, so you can find them on the SSC Riga website. We also are releasing a couple of videos, short, sweet summaries of the project, so watch out for them, 3 to 8 minutes. You can find out more about the findings and the experiences. And if you wish to get in touch, please do. You can contact my colleague Zane, Marija, or me about further ideas, or if you're interested, we can share materials with you. Thank you.